Hey folks, Brian. Excuse me. We got to play RQG last night. Yay! Oh, and as I was testing this video feed, I don't know if it's the shape of the room, got a little echo to it. So if anybody's interested, give me some feedback on does it sound better like this or with the headset with mic. So anyway, last night, Runequest Roleplaying in Glorantha. Not that a whole lot of the game recently has been much Glorantha specific, though the theme running behind the whole thing definitely is. When we last left the party, Voskandor had had cast, I need to find a better word for that, his rune magic spell, Berserk. So he's in a Berserker Rage. The party had healed him up a couple times because he kept losing hit points in his arm. And he had taken a lot of damage. But he ended up, after a Rustra got her arm chopped off. That was a great one. And the party dragged her down the hallway to get out of the way. He ended up finishing off the last bad guy. And Subutai is on the wall making aim shots to the head of the bad guy. I believe he missed both times that he was there. So he gets to see what's happened, right? Voskandor kills the guy, looks around, looks back down the hallway, turns and runs, books it. So the rest of the party can hear, somebody in plate and scale with feet running away. And and it's all in the live play in the description, although the first part of it is a bunch of just talking back and forth about various discussion items. We didn't really start at that point, and then there's some back and forth on some other things as it goes along, but it's there if you're into that kind of thing. So the party pulls back, and they were talking about taking a Rustra to one of the barracks rooms, and put her in bed and have the trolls take a guard position. They end up going to the storage room, which is the first opening in the wall there. It's not a door, it's just an opening. You walk in, there's the storage stuff. So this is the first time I actually looked into this room. Storage crates, barrels, there's a weapons rack, all kinds of stuff in there. So they drag a Rustra in, lay her down, and there's this whole back and forth on trying to communicate with the trolls and having them stay here and guard her. And at the end of this session, there's also more discussion about language and how we're interpreting it and how we're actually mechanically using it. There's a couple things here. The first is your specific percentage conveys your ability to communicate well. Water, food, please, up to very intricate discussions and that kind of thing, right? But then there's the whole, can you communicate an idea back and forth between two people? Normally, people are like 50% of their language, so 50-50 is 100%. So you've got communication. Could roll for a fumble just to see if something backwards happens, but that's optional, I think, for certain things. But anyway, because you don't have to roll every time, right? Now there's a side discussion that I had with somebody else on if your skill is a certain percentage, for certain things you don't really need to roll. The example we're using was Call of Cthulhu and driving. If my driving is 75, I'm going through town, I don't need to roll. Now, if I'm chasing somebody, speeding, going around corners, there's some driving control kind of stuff happening then. So when you're just communicating, basic normal stuff, like, hey, I'm hungry, can I have something to eat? If your percentage is at a certain point, you should be able to just do that. We'll have more discussions on it anyway. So anyway, we're adding the trolls trade talk, which is 22 and 23, to the party's various numbers of trade talk to see what kind of percent chance they have of communicating. And there's some, just what we're talking about. We don't understand. And then what? Going back and forth. But eventually they got the point across and they agreed to do that. So they're in the storage room guarding Rush's body. And then they turn to go follow Voskandor, thinking he's going to get into a fight and get in trouble because he's all by himself. So as I was planning this out, okay, what's Voskandor going to do? We are inside an underground, a buried fortress, right? So there's no light down here. There's some trickling down from the stairwell, except we're at night, So there's not a whole lot coming down. So only light sources in this place are light sources that are lit. So the party's got a lamp or a torch. They got, you know, some kind of light source. So there's light behind him down that hallway, but there's also light down the hallway the bad guys came from. And so I, you know, rolling dice to, you know, which is more prevalent, what's he going to do? And it was heavily weighted down that hallway. Well, the dice showed a prevalence for going down the hallway back where the bad guys came from. So that's the way he books down there. You know, they came out of a room and they've got a light source in that room, so there's light spilling through the, you know, even though the door's closed, you know, there's light coming through. So he's booking down there for there. He smashes it open, and there's a couple of turns of things happening in there. And then okay, nothing's here, back the other way. So he runs back. So I figured out it took 6 rounds, and then at strike rank 5 is when he comes around that corner and is engaging that hallway where the players are. And I do we play on Discord. I've got a dice spot, so I roll it just to see, he's going to start attempting intelligence rolls to break out of the Berserker Rage. And he rolled a 7. So he turns the corner, sees the party, recognizes his friends, and breaks out of the Berserker Rage. When that happens, strike rank 6, his hit points move from, well, he's got Constitution at 20, his size at 16, so he's got normally 21 hit points. His Constitution goes up by 10, so he's got 31 hit points. He's at 5 hit points at this point. So he loses 10. He's now at -5 hit points. And I've got this rule where there's this buffer zone between 0 and your healing rate, that if you're in that zone, you're like comatose. You're not dying, but you're not alive. Until, you know, either healing naturally or magic or first aid or whatever does stuff, right? But if you're below that point, the whole Runequest rule of, if you're not healed to a non-dying state within the end of that melee round, you die. So he is below his healing rate. He is going to die at the end of this round. The party sees him. They run up to him. Subutai invokes Harmony to inspire his Spirit Magic Healing 2 spell. Right? Makes his Harmony roll, because it's plus 20, makes the healing roll, heals 2 points. That heal 2 spell goes off on round 7, strike rank 1. So by 1 strike rank, they missed actually saving him, because that would have put him from -5 to -3, which is in that buffer zone. Yeah. Interesting. Maybe, this is an idea, maybe I'll go to double healing rate. That's when most people have like a healing rate of 2. That would give them to a 4. Most arms and legs are about 4, so there's some kind of, you know, ratio there. I'll have to look into that. It's an idea. I wish we put it in -8, in which case he'd been fine anyway. But anyway, so they missed the roll. He dies. They're investigating his body. He's not breathing. He's covered in blood. And Subutai, Englar had moved forward to watch down the hallway in case something, or stand by the hallway in case somebody comes around that they can attack. And Subutai says, Englar, he seems to be dead. There's nothing I can do. And so they switch places, and Englar uses his magic point crystal to do a heal 6, thinking that maybe a heal 6 will do the stop the dying thing rather than a heal 2. Now, heal 2, since it stops bleeding, will stop dying, just like first aid stops bleeding, will stop dying. So the heal 2 would have done it if it would have been done in time. They burn 6 more magic points. At that point, they start talking, okay, we are burned out of magic points. Some of us, Subutai still has damage. We've got both of our heavy fighters down. What are we going to do? They decide to hold up in one of the barracks rooms because Arestra is simply unconscious because of the shock roll she missed from the slash that she got that she took her on. We figured out it's going to be 2 hours, but players really know that. So they buck up into a one of the barracks rooms. The barracks rooms have a little sliding lock thing, so they lock the door. They actually move one of the bunk beds up against that as well to block the door. And then, okay, how long are we going to rest? Well, they rest for a while. It turns out to be, the 2 hours later, Arrestra becomes conscious. Oh, what's going on? Help, help. And, I did have 2 players that weren't able to show. One of them was Voskandor's player. He was working, but he came back. He came home. He's my son. Came home about 11 o'clock. And we were, talking about, okay, do we just cut it here? What do we do? And somebody had mentioned about divine intervention. I go, holy cow, yes. Voskandor could have rolled for divine intervention when he went down. He may still be alive. And so we talked a bit about, okay, parallel timelines, if you will, but the effects of the players wouldn't change. Whether Voskandor's still alive because he'd been comatose. Yeah, he would have just been comatose, I think. I'd have to go back through and actually read the divine intervention stuff. And they would have still done their healing stuff on him, whether he is dead or whether he's alive. So we're all still in the room. Everything's still the same. He comes home, rolls the dice, rolls a 23. Nice and low, but not low enough. So he is, in fact, dead. So they decide to say, okay, we're going to stay here for 24 hours. Everybody gets all their magic points back. Because I know that the male dark troll was down to 1 magic point from all the magic he was putting into his sister. So they stay 24 hours. Arrestra is conscious. They've all got their magic points back. Voskandor is obviously dead. I'll have the player run the male dark troll for the rest of this scenario until they get to a position of being able to get to somebody else. He's got a couple ideas. He's actually got 3 different ideas. But the problem is going to be tying them in. We'll have to see how that works out. A couple of them, they're all potential, right? But anyway, so that's where we're in the session. Another short one. No combat, some rule discussion, lots of rolling for just communication, and roll and timing. That's what it all came down to, is timing. How long it took him to go down, do his things, come back, come around. What point did he come around? How close did they get to him in time? Kind of a shame. But as the players say, and that character was broken. So, things are what they are. Happy gaming.